Hello students, today I am going to teach you the topic energy source and muscle metabolism. Okay, as in the previous classes we have learned about the muscle physiology. We have gone through the molecular basis of muscle contractions, its work done. Okay, and today I will teach you how the energy are consumed by the muscle to do any work. Okay, now first of all, coming to the energy source of for muscle contraction. What is muscle? Muscle is a machine for converting chemical energy into mechanical energy. Okay, the immediate source of energy is ATP, and the ultimate source is the immediate metabolism of carbohydrate and lipids. Okay, now coming to the processes by which the energy is released. Okay, first of all, for every process of the body, okay, normal metabolism of the body, first of all what happens? Hydrolysis of ATP occurs. Okay, hydrolysis of ATP is an reversible reaction. Okay, it provides energy for the muscle contraction. Now, ATP stored in the muscle initiates the contractile activity but is consumed after a few twitches in about 3 seconds. All the ATP stored in the muscle cell is depleted. Thus, there is need for synthesis of ATP. Now, first of all, how the ATP is hydrolyzed? ATP combines with water and forms ADP. Do you know what is ATP? Adenine triphosphate combines with water and then it is converted into ADP, adenine diphosphate and phosphate. That Pi is inorganic phosphate plus energy is released. Okay, this process is reversible. Okay, when ATP is formed again in 3 seconds, again ATP is formed. Okay, now coming to resynthesis of ATP, I have told you it is a reversible reaction and ATP is again formed in the body for the next energy production. Okay, now how ATP is resynthesized? First is the phosphorylation of ADP by creatine phosphate. Creatine phosphate combines with the ADP and forms creatine plus ATP. Okay, now the second process is glycolysis. Glycolysis, after depletion of creatine phosphate reserve, the next important source of energy which is used to reconstitute both ATP and phosphocreatinine is glycogen. Okay, now as I will show you a figure how glycogen is breakdown and forms ATP by the aerobic and anaerobic processes. Okay, now each molecule of glycogen produces 2 molecules of ATP. Further changes in pyruvic acid depends upon the availability of oxygen. Here is the breakdown of glycogen. In this figure you can see the process of glycolysis. From one glycogen, 2 pyruvic acid and 2 ATP are formed. Now according to the presence of availability of oxygen, the process goes through the anaerobic and aerobic processes. Okay, now in the absence of oxygen, the pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid which is released into the blood. From the blood, lactic acid is taken up by the kidney and liver where it is reconverted into glucose and released back into circulation. This process is done by the cori cycle. Now, if oxygen is available, the pyruvic acid enters into the Krebs cycle. You have all studied about the Krebs cycle in your 12th classes. Okay. Now a total of 38 ATP molecules are formed during breakdown of each glycogen molecule. Now coming to the third process, that is oxidative metabolism. It is also a source of energy production. Okay, what is oxidative metabolism? It means combining of oxygen with various cellular foodstuffs to liberate ATP is the final source of energy during muscle contraction. This source contributes more than 95% of all energy used by the muscle for sustained long-term contractions. Foodstuffs used in oxidative metabolism includes fats, carbohydrates and proteins. Now coming to the oxygen demand, consumption and depth in the body during any type of exercise, okay, or any type of work done by the muscle. What is the oxygen demand of the body during the process of the muscle contraction or doing any work? Okay, coming to oxygen demand, it increases with the intensity of exercise or the intensity of muscle contraction. It has been reported that in a sprint lasting for half minute, the oxygen demand is around 20 liter per minute. Okay. Oxygen consumption that I have told you, it is dependent upon the capacity of the lungs. Okay, it is the volume of oxygen which has been actually consumed during the exercise, and the maximum amount of oxygen that can be consumed by a person while performing severe exercise is VO2 max. Now coming to oxygen depth. What is oxygen depth? Okay, during intense exercise, the maximum oxygen consumed is much less than the oxygen demand. So, the energy requirement is met by the anaerobic pathway. Okay, after the period of exercise, extra O2 is consumed to remove the excess lactate collected due to anaerobic glucose breakdown. Now, to replenish the ATP and phosphoryl creatine store and replace the small amount of oxygen that have come from the myoglobin, okay, what happens? This amount of extra oxygen is taken by the body. Okay, this amount of extra oxygen is consumed is called O2 depth, and it is proportionate to the extent to which energy demand during exercise exceeded the capacity of anaerobic synthesis of energy store, that is extent to which oxygen deficit occurred during exercise. Means I am coming here in the next figure and explain you. Here you can see the oxygen depth figure, and I'll explain you. Here you can see the blue, the graph which is shown by the line, okay, from the 10 to the, which is increasing sigmoid figure. It is the oxygen that is taken by the body, maximum, that is oxygen consumed. Okay, but the body that can take the amount of oxygen that the body can take is not the maximum, or it is not the to the such amount that it can fulfill the demand of the body. Here you can see the blue area, which is the oxygen deficit, means it is the amount of oxygen that should be gone in the body during the exercise to fulfill the oxygen demand, but it is not gone in the body, but because the body could not take such amount of oxygen, it doesn't have the capacity. Okay, this is the oxygen deficit. The blue area is oxygen deficit. It is the volume difference between an ideal and the real O2 uptake means this amount of oxygen should have been taken, means the blue area and the cream area. It is the total amount of oxygen that is needed by the body during the exercise, but only the cream area is the amount of the oxygen which has gone in the body, and the blue area is the amount of oxygen demand which has not fulfilled. This is the oxygen deficit. Now here at the point, red a point between the 6 and 7 graph, the exercise has been stopped. Now as the exercise has stopped, the demand of the body has decreased, but the body is going on taking oxygen, means the person breathes fast and deep and takes energy and takes oxygen in the body. Why? This oxygen is used to replenish the ATP and the breakdown the remove the lactate that has been deposited in the body during the anaerobic respiration. That's why this oxygen helps in the removal of the lactic acid and replenish the ATP and the phosphoryl creatine store. Then this amount of oxygen, this extra amount of oxygen which is needed by the body to restore all the energetic system is called the oxygen depth. Okay, the extra volume that is needed to restore all energetic system is called oxygen depth. Okay, now the amount of extra oxygen consumed is called oxygen depth, that I have told you, and is proportionate to the extent to which energy demand during exercise exceeded the capacity of an aerobic synthesis of energy stored. Okay, now oxygen depth can be measured experimentally by determining oxygen consumption after exercise until constant basal consumption is reached, and then subtracting the basal oxygen consumption from the total oxygen consumed during this period of exercise. Okay, here you can see the mechanical efficiency of muscle. What is it? Mechanical efficiency of a muscle is equal to work done by the muscle divided by oxygen consumption. Therefore, the mechanical efficiency in isotonic contraction is approximately 25% of the energy expenditure, and 75% is degraded as heat. Okay, now coming to the isometric contraction where no external work is done. Therefore, the mechanical efficiency is nil and 100% energy expenditure is disappeared as heat. Now coming to the changes in pH during muscle contraction. During resting, changes in the pH and the reaction of the muscle during contractions are as follows. During resting condition, the reaction of muscle is alkaline and with pH of 7.3. During onset of muscle contraction, due to dephosphorylation of ATP to ADP, the pH of muscle becomes acidic. Now coming to the thermal changes. Before going to the thermal changes, I will tell you one thing. To avoid the exercise in the oxygen depth, To avoid excessive O2 depth early in the race, the experienced long distance runners begin to race very slowly to allow the cardiorespiratory system to gear up. Means to consume run slowly to consume extra oxygen in the body and decrease the oxygen depth. Okay, means to gear up the energy demand of muscular activity once a steady state is attained due to cardiorespiratory readjustment. The oxygen supply balance the oxygen requirement of the muscle. This state of oxidative metabolism to provide energy for the muscle can continue for several hours without producing excessive oxygen depth. This prevents too much anaerobic metabolism and accumulation of lactic acid, which hamper the efficiency of the sportsman. Okay. Now coming to thermal changes during muscle contraction. The thermal changes in the muscle during different phases of contractions are the resting heat. What is resting heat? It is the heat generated when the muscle is at rest, that is not contracting. Resting heat is the external manifestation of the basal metabolic process of the muscle. Now coming to initial heat. It refers to the heat generated in excess of resting heat during muscle contraction. It is made up of the following components. Okay, first is activation heat. Activation heat refers to initial rapid liberation of energy before the actual contraction of the muscle. It is mostly due to the heat liberated when calcium ion is released from the T-tubule of sarcoplasmic reticulum and the myosin ATPase is activated. Now coming to the shortening heat. What is shortening heat? It is produced when the muscle contracts isotonically. It is produced due to various structural changes in the muscle fiber, like movement of cross bridges. Okay. Now, and also myosin head and breakdown of glycogen. This is seen in the process of contractions of a muscle. It is absent during the isometric contraction, because in the isometric contraction what happens, the length of the muscle is not shortened. Okay, only tone is increased. Now coming to maintenance heat. It is generated during the isometric contraction when no actual shortening of the muscle fiber takes place. Its cause is complicated and mostly obscure. Means since the shortening is not seen, no work done is seen, so why the heat is generated can't be explained properly. Now coming to recovery heat. What is recovery heat? It is the heat produced in excess of resting heat following muscle contraction. It continues for about 30 minutes of the cessation of muscle contraction. Means after person is relaxing, this heat goes on generating. Okay. This heat is generated by the metabolic process that restores the muscle to its pro-contraction state. The recovery heat is approximately equal to initial heat. Okay, that is the heat produced during contraction. Means the heat produced during recovery is equal to the heat produced during contraction. Now coming to relaxation heat. This is the extra heat in addition to the recovery heat which is produced during relaxation of the isotonically contracted muscle. Okay. Now coming to fan effect. What is fan effect? It tells that the heat produced is directly proportional to the work done. When the work done is more, the expenditure of ATP will also be more. Therefore, fan effect can be considered to state that more work done causes more expenditure of energy.